Okay, we'll now turn to our witness, and thank you for being here. First, let me say that our witness, actually only have one witness, is the Honorable Pamela Jones-Harbor, who's the commissioner, or a commissioner from the Federal Trade Commission. However, my understanding is she's been joined by Mr. Robleski, who was the prime author of the report, and he's not going to testify, but will be available for questions, is the way I understand it. You know, we know we have 5-minute opening statements, and then we may get back to you later with additional written questions as well, but we'll have questions from all the panelists, from all the members of the subcommittee today. So if you'd begin, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Pallone, Ranking Member Deal, and members of the subcommittee. I'm Pamela Jones-Harbor, a commissioner of the Federal Trade Commission. I am joined by Michael Robleski, Deputy Director of the FTC's Office of Policy Planning. Thank you for inviting us to testify here today. I appreciate this opportunity to provide an overview of the Commission's recently released report called Emerging Healthcare Issues, Follow-on Biologic Drug Competition. A primary goal of our report is to examine how competition is likely to evolve in biologics markets, in particular between pioneer biologics and follow-on biologics, or FOBs. The report sets forth our findings regarding the competitive dynamics of FOBs, and we hope that our recommendations will inform the legislative debate. I note that the report does not address any specific bills. The Commission recognizes that legislators are balancing many different objectives as they seek to craft a solution that best protects the public interest. The Commission has limited its recommendations to competition issues, which are our core area of expertise. We believe, of course, that this competition perspective is of critical importance in the FOB debate, which is why we are grateful to have been given literally a seat at the table today. If Congress can create a balanced pathway for FOBs and also pass legislation to eliminate pay-for-delay patent settlements between branded and generic companies in small molecule markets, then Congress will have taken substantial steps to ensure that all Americans have access to affordable life-saving medicines. On behalf of Chairman Leibowitz, I commend the Commerce Committee for moving legislation to ban these patent settlements through the Consumer Protection Subcommittee last week. The report's basic premise is that competition between pioneer biologics and FOBs is likely to look much more like current competition between two or more branded drugs that treat the same medical condition, for example, Enbrel and Remicade, which both treat rheumatoid arthritis. It will look less like current competition between branded and generic versions of a drug, and I will explain why the Commission reached this conclusion, and I will also identify some implications for legislation seeking to create an abbreviated regulatory approval pathway for FOBs. But first, I will begin by highlighting some important characteristics of the biologics marketplace. As you know, the emergence of biologics drugs has dramatically improved the lives of thousands of Americans over the past few decades. For example, the biologic Herceptin is used to treat breast cancer, and an annual course of treatment costs about $48,000 a year. One way to reduce the costs of biologics would be to authorize the Food and Drug Administration to permit follow-on biologics to enter the market once a biologics drug's patents expire. However, there is no statutory or regulatory pathway to allow abbreviated FOB entry without the FOB applicant having to duplicate existing knowledge about safety and efficacy. This duplication represents an inefficient use of limited R&D resources. Also, as the FDA has explained, repeating all of the clinical trials raises ethical concerns associated with unnecessary human testing. Elements of the Hatch-Waxman Act provide a model for reducing FOB entry costs and addressing ethical concerns. Hatch-Waxman does not require generic applicants to duplicate the clinical testing of branded drugs that have already been proven safe and effective. Hatch-Waxman has successfully reduced drug prices, has broadened access, and has hastened the pace of innovation. And if pay-for-delay settlements are prohibited, these benefits of Hatch-Waxman will be preserved. But as the report describes, according to the FDA, there are key scientific differences between biologic and small molecule drug products. Most notably, under Hatch-Waxman, the generic applicant must show that the product is bioequivalent to the branded drug product. This is important because it means that the product is identical. In stark contrast, according to the FDA, biologics products cannot be perfectly duplicated, at least not based on current science. Technology is not yet robust enough to determine whether an FOB product is interchangeable with the Pioneer product. Current FOB legislative proposals reflect the complexities of biologics. They would permit FDA approval of an FOB drug that is similar to, but not an exact replica of the Pioneer biologic product. Under these proposals, the FDA could rely on its previous findings regarding the Pioneer biologic drugs' safety and efficacy to the extent those findings also would be relevant to the FOB. An FOB manufacturer likely would save on some clinical testing expenses, which would reduce entry costs. So with that background in mind, let me turn to the Commission's report. The purpose of our study was to evaluate how FOB competition is likely to develop and evolve, paying particularly close attention to the differences between small molecule and biologic drugs. The study was coordinated by an interdisciplinary FTC team headed by Mr. Wroblewski that included not only pharmaceutical industry experts, but also patent lawyers and economists. As part of its inquiry, the Commission solicited 2 rounds of public comments, which attracted submissions from approximately 30 industry participants and other stakeholders. In November 2008, the Commission conducted a public roundtable discussion that included over 30 panelists. The Commission also has examined European markets where FOB entry has occurred. In the interest of time, let me briefly summarize the 4 major reasons why FOB competition is not likely to be like generic brand competition. First, it is the extraordinary cost and time necessary to develop an FOB, which will sharply limit the number of competitors who can afford to enter, and also will limit the discounts the FOB can offer in relation to the Pioneer price. Second, follow-on entry will not radically erode the Pioneer's market share. Third, the specialty pharmaceutical characteristics of FOBs are likely to further constrain the FOB's entrant's ability to gain market share. And the fourth reason is because biologics are provided in clinic-type settings as part of medical treatments. They are not purchased and reimbursed in the same manner as small molecule drugs. As a result of all of these factors, the Commission's report predicts that FOB markets are likely to develop with the following characteristics. First, that FOB entry is likely to occur in biologic drug markets with more than $250 million in annual sales. Only 2 or 3 FOB manufacturers are likely to attempt entry in competition with a particular Pioneer drug product. These FOB entrants likely will not offer price discounts larger than 10 to 30% off of the Pioneer product's price. Although this discount is not as steep as with small molecule generic drugs, it does represent millions of dollars in consumer savings for these very expensive products. Pioneer manufacturers are expected to respond by offering competitive discounts to maintain their market share. This price competition likely will increase consumer access and further expand the market. Without automatic substitution, FOB market share acquisition will be slowed. Pioneer manufacturers likely will retain 70 to 90% of their market share. This means that a Pioneer firm will continue to reap substantial profits for years, even after entry by an FOB. FOB market dynamics will contrast sharply with the market dynamics of generic drug competition, where lower-cost generic entry plus automatic substitution lead to rapid erosion of the branded drug's market share. When the first generic drug enters the market, it generally offers a 25% discount off of the branded drug's price. As additional generic firms enter, and often there are 8 or more of them, the price discounts reach as high as 80%. Given these likely dynamics of FOB markets, the Commission next asked whether any additional incentive...
Commissioner, I'm sorry, but you're like twice the time so far.
Okay, then
so
I will stop.
No, just wrap up. I don't want to stop you completely, but just try to summarize the rest if you could.
I would say that the findings have several implications for the design of an abbreviated approval system. I think first, pioneer manufacturers are unlikely to need additional incentives to continue to innovate in the face of FOB entry beyond the existing patent protection and market-based pricing. I would be ready to answer questions now. We can engage in a Q&A, and I know that the committee is very interested to hear what we have to say, so thank you.
Thank you very much, and I always hate to stop anyone, but we all have time constraints.